going to do now, as we've mentioned, is to really kind of help us digest a little bit more on that one. We're going to broaden the conversation out now and welcome two of our members who we think are well placed to help us look at those ideas. We've got Tracy Nat from AXA Investment Managers, and we have Rhianna Fisher-Wilford from Selesti. Hi there, Rhianna. Hi there, Tracy.
Hi.
Sorry, Rhianna, isn't it? Not Rhianna. Apologies. So initially, I suppose then, Rhianna, could I ask you, could you just give us a quick idea of what you do at Selesti? And then I'd like to know the theme or the idea that came across there that you think has made the biggest impact for you.
Yeah, so I am Digital Creative Director at Selesti. So having a sort of overview of what all of our clients are up to and what our creative deliverables are for them across all the different channels digitally, so content, social, and digital outreach. And for me, I think the thing that stands out the most is the communities aspect. It's something that I've seen work so well if it's done right in previous roles. When I was at LV, we worked to sort of build this community beyond mum and baby into a space that was very authentic and real, and actually about the sort of real nitty gritty of motherhood, which I think really set apart from competitors who are still on this very idealistic, lovely view of this in the same space. So I think, yeah, that's the one to tap into for 2022, finding that community where your brand really sits within and growing out in that space.
Thank you so much, Rhianna. Tracy, give us a quick idea of what you do at AXA, and then, yeah, which of the things you've seen so far this morning have hit you biggest?
Yeah, I'm responsible for social media across the business for AXA Investment Managers globally, and corporate web as well. I guess a couple of the things that really, well, first of all, I should say that AXA Investment Managers is an asset management business. So we're always about as far as you can imagine from the cutting edge of social media, unfortunately, which is in fact one of the reasons why I've always loved these sessions, because you hear from people like Dominique about, you know, this is where you're supposed to be aiming for, this is your North Star. And then you also hear from the community who attend the sessions about, yeah, but, you know, this is where we are, and actually you're not the only one who is quite far away from that. But there were some really interesting trends, and I've also taken a couple of pages of notes. And I guess the ones that really struck me are the improving the employee experience, which for AXA IM is super important. You know, it's not just about the customers, because a lot of people who are on social who are our followers are people who work in the business and who actually want to stay connected in an age where we can't be physically connected. You know, it's starting, but there's so much uncertainty to still. And also it is an internal comms channel as well for people. They're not always going to be following the internal tools and the internal emails, and they don't have the, you know, water cooler conversations that used to exist. So it's connecting with them everywhere they choose to be, whether it is a customer or an employee, which is so important. And then the other topic that I thought was really interesting that Dominique shared was about how social has definitely come even more into its own, with the social media manager being at the forefront of questions, unfortunately complaints sometimes for our customers, how we need to help the rest of the business understand the vital importance of social and digital. And, you know, I've had a 20-year experience in financial services working on digital topics. And so often what the digital teams are doing should be driving the strategy, because we are the ones who are hearing from our customers, who are hearing from what's, you know, what we need to do in terms of technical capabilities to be at the forefront. And yet we're still seen as a comms channel or a marketing channel. And so I would be interested to hear from other people about how they're trying to address that challenge when they still do work in a relatively traditionally set up business. How can you really make sure that we are at the forefront and we are sort of driving the transformation, in fact, of the business a bit more, with the minimal budgets that people think that, you know, social media are, you know, and it costs a couple of £1,000s to do XYZ, so here's your baby budget.
It comes back to the idea, doesn't it, that even though things change, there are certain core principles of social that maybe don't change. And that idea of whether it's broadcast or whether it's conversation, I suppose that balance, that debate is is always with us.
Yeah.
I'm really glad, Tracy, you mentioned the point that Dominique made about employee experience, because I think that mirrors something we've heard in a lot of other DLF sessions and DLF conversations. The idea of the employee experience being really now boosted in its significance and its importance. That certainly rings a bell with us. I mean, Dominique, you mentioned to us that has been recognised of growing importance. Are there any examples or tips or anything you can share with us about how that's being dealt with?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of ways. Obviously, it completely depends on your business and the setup that you've got. It's a complete testament, like I said, like we're all working from home. Like I can see a lot of kind of home offices in the background that we've managed to continue. But a huge thing that we're doing at Hootsuite that I think definitely works is, whilst we've got kind of our global channels and we're seeing everything that's happening, we're making sure that also more locally, we still have like our own little kind of what would be office bubble, and the people that you would kind of sit in your desk buddies and things, you're all together. But also it's just creating the experience that you're all involved. Everyone's in kind of the same boat, whilst we may be in like a slightly different ocean. We're all in it together and no one's being forgotten. I think that's probably one of the kind of hardest things to hear over the last year, has been a lot of particularly social media managers are really dealing with so much negative feedback online again and again and again, and it's making sure that you can share that, like make sure that people are there to listen to you, focus on mental health, making sure that everyone is available for you. But then when it comes to making sure that everybody is seen as kind of an internal influencer for the brand, like we're all in it together. When we're looking at employee advocacy, it's not just kind of social selling that I know we've kind of spoken about before, but it's making sure that everyone cares enough about the brand that they're willing to share content online, they're willing to be a part of it. And I know I'm probably speaking from someone with quite a lot of privilege working at Hootsuite, where it is a fantastic company and it is really exciting, so we all want to get involved and share it, but it's making sure that the tools are available when that happens.
Yeah, that's a nice way of looking at it. Rhianna, do you have any thoughts on that, the importance of employee experience and the way that social media can be used to make the most out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are some brands like ASOS who really, really kill the game at that. The employer brand, the whole employer advocacy on LinkedIn and across social in general is just so spot on. And you can just tell that as a company, they're engaging across social and with the employees across the whole brand, and really bringing that experience to life and sort of sharing it across the board with everybody else, which is really, really great to see.
So I've got some more questions I'm keen to ask our guests here, but do hit us up in the chat for anything you'd like to know about. There was one thing I just wanted to ask you all, I think. There was different platforms were mentioned, the growth in TikTok. I was really interested to see what seems like a resurgence in Pinterest, which is interesting. That was a big surprise for me. There's all these options here. How do individual brands and organizations make sure they're not just jumping on bandwagons, they're not just doing it for the sake of it? How do they make sure that the choices they're making on where to engage and where to run things are the right things for them? I don't know who wants to do. Tracy, would you like to start with that idea? How do you decide which are the right platforms for your brand?
Well, I mean, it's relatively easy for us in that we're a business to institutional business. So, you know, LinkedIn is the obvious one. However, we've certainly started to take opportunities on channels such as LinkedIn on Facebook to speak a lot more about the experience of employees for life at AXA IM, so that we can talk about have our employees be our advocates. The type of content that we produce, which links into another one of Dominique's very useful points about how you should be creating content for specific channels rather than just repurposing something that's for, I don't know, for digital to put it on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. We're never going to have the budget to do that for TikTok or for WhatsApp. And also our primary audience are not on there yet. So to answer your question, it is relatively simple for us to make certain decisions. And the top 3 or 4 that Dominique had in her presentation were absolutely the ones that we're focusing on. And the other ones we just simply won't do unless we're in a region like in Asia, where there is more likelihood that people are going to be on some of the other platforms like WeChat and so on.
This mirrors that point you made earlier, doesn't it? The fact that depending on the sector you're in and the level of how traditional your business is, your whole decision-making process here might be different.
Yeah.
Rhianna, what's your take on how an organisation looks at the kind of intelligence Dominique has offered us here and works out, well, where should we be and where shouldn't we jump?
Yeah, I think it's having a real understanding of your customers or your clients or your prospects and where they hang out and how they consume content and what they're looking for on each platform. I think there is place for B2B to be on places like TikTok and Pinterest, but it's whether or not it's right for your B2B. We've got clients that we wouldn't recommend those channels for, because it is much better for them to sort of spend their time on sort of LinkedIn, and that's really where they're going to sort of get conversions. But we've got clients that could have more fun and do things on Pinterest because it is relevant. We've got like an educational brand who, absolutely that they should be on Pinterest, and there's room for them on TikTok as well. There's definitely an audience for it. So I think it's about understanding where you're going to find the people that are relevant to you and how to deliver content that's native to that platform, that fits with that platform and doesn't feel like you're plonking something on Pinterest for the sake of it.
Now, we mentioned earlier that we're fine with disagreement. We like a bit of heckling here. And one such heckle has come in, Alvin from CMR Surgical. Alvin's asking, should brands not consider just using all channels so they can just maximise their reach, ensure they're reaching all the audiences and all the channels, and then also thinking about the next generation that could come next? So is that a valid approach then, to just hedge your bets and put yourself everywhere? I mean, Dominique, what do you think? Kind
of, yes. I'm going to say kind of two sides to this story. So the first thing, to Alvin's point, is yes, you should absolutely consider all channels. I don't know if EDF are in the call today. I know they sometimes attend DLF events, but I saw an incredible TikTok from them the other day, which they're obviously EDF. You wouldn't think about TikTok with it, but when we're looking at the HR point of things, they're sharing what it's like to work at EDF. They're really trying to target getting a new audience in, and when you're looking at people under the age of 24 and you want to bring them into your employee pool, then that's where they are. And similarly, I think I can never pronounce it right. Is it Maersk? I think is the huge container port company. They're huge on TikTok. Like, they have such a huge following, and I never knew that I would be that interested in watching shipping containers go up and down the Suez Canal. But there you go. They get really high views. So I think you just need to make sure you're aligning it to business goals. So what are you actually trying to do as a business, and then how can you make that fit in? There is a place for all social channels. I know at Hootsuite we do an awful lot of testing and learning, so we try and jump in with trends, but it has to matter to us and we have to understand why we're doing it. You might have seen a couple of weeks ago we had our owly twerking on TikTok, which is something I never would have thought was going to happen, but it's because we were tagged. So Duolingo started a thing, so their logo is also an owlie. They started twerking, we've got an owl, so we started twerking, and it just kind of rolled up and started going. And then that's for us, because we've got a freemium model as well, where you can use Hootsuite. It fits for that market and it fits for that model. But then to caveat all of that, you don't want to spread yourself too thin across social channels. If you don't have the budgets to have someone dedicated for each, then spreading yourself too thin, you're going to forget about your customers that are already following you on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever it may be, and they deserve your attention just as much. So don't spread yourself too thin. Don't kind of throw budgets where they're not 100% necessary, but 100% test and learn if it aligns to your business goals.
I think you make a brilliant point there. It's not as simple as just being everywhere, because to do it properly needs resource, needs time. That makes a lot of sense. A question here from one of Rhianna's colleagues, Louis at Selesti, asking, you mentioned that the metaverse and avatar virtual events, all that sort of good stuff, quite topical at the moment. Obviously clear pathways for B2C brands and products. Do you think this could work from a B2B perspective? And or with services rather than products? If so, how? Be good to get your thoughts, Dominique, and then also Tracy, as a B2B specialist, be good to get your thoughts on the metaverse, the avatar direction, see what you think.
Yeah, so anything towards metaverse at the minute, I'm so confused. Like none of us really know what it's going to be. Like we're really at the early stages. But we actually hosted an event in, in New Zealand, but focused in Auckland. So as you know, they didn't lock down for a very long time. They, like living their best lives for quite a while. So we were attending in-person conferences there. However, earlier this year, they did unfortunately have to go into lockdown. So one of their events changed to online, and we hosted our conference as an online game. It was kind of a little bit, I can't remember the name of the game, Minecrafty kind of thing, where you could like walk into the room and then you could sit and have a conversation with us. And that was very B2B. It worked really well in that we tried to make, like, there were fun games, you could learn about Hootsuite, you could watch videos with the kind of avatars all together. So I definitely think there's a place for B2B. I don't think it's something that should be forgotten, but again, it's just got to really align with your business goals. Because I don't know about any of you, but I have personally really missed the kind of face-to-face conferences. I don't think anything beats it. Like these kind of virtual events are really great, but at the end of the day, we're sat in our own little rooms. I'm thinking about the washing that I've got to hang up. I'm thinking about so many other things. Whereas if I was at a conference, I'd be there, I'd be like, no, I'm here for 6 hours, whatever it may be. And that is my sole focus, and shaking hands and things. So somehow the metaverse does kind of fit that need ever so slightly. But yeah, interested in hearing what other people think too.
Yeah, Tracy, with your B2B knowledge, what's your view on this kind of alternative world, this metaverse idea?
I think that our audience, our key customers at the moment would not go for that kind of thing. They're just too old, to be honest with you, and probably not very, it's hard enough to get some of our colleagues, even some of our internal salespeople, they don't know how to put post on LinkedIn. They don't know how to tag someone. They don't know how to tag a company. To actually get them to try and invest their time into something that is seen as relatively new and a bit scary for them, they just won't do it. So we wouldn't be successful. However, I think there will be a place for it. I think what we're going to be moving to, unfortunately, with the way the world is going and with the fact that we are living with COVID now, I think there are going to be occasions when we're going to be going back to virtual compared to real life. And I think what we need to be able to do is to turn those virtual events into something which is extremely compelling and engaging, and that is probably one of the ways we will do it. But for my industry, for sure, we're not there yet. However, for B2B as a whole, I think it is something which should be embraced and investigated further.
Okay, we've probably got time for one more question from our audience. It's been so good to see the questions coming in through chat today. I'm probably going to start with Rhianna on this question, if that's okay. Charlie, who I think might be Charlie from GSK, but correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie. Charlie's asked about expectations from customers and how they've changed. Charlie says, I'm often being told people do not expect an instant reply. What are your thoughts on SLAs, service level agreements, and has this changed over the past year or two? So that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I think, it has changed, and people are expecting something way more instantaneous. I think there was always a bit of grace with social media, as it was a new and emerging customer service channel that people would expect, a reply within 24 hours. I know I've worked in small businesses where we've had that sort of caveat instant reply, like we'll hopefully get to eventually. But now it's completely changed, and the customer is often at home now. They've often got more time, like we say, to follow up on these things, and it's on their mind. It's more pressing. It's not something, you're not far enough an email or waiting for your lunch break to make a call. You've got this time, you've got it now, and you want your answers. I think it's the pace of customer service has rapidly changed in the last 2 years.
Dominique, do you think it's something that varies sector to sector, where in some areas people are expecting instantaneous customer service, in others there's not that expectation?
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on what the customer service complaint would be. So in our recent digital report, actually, we found that most people, I think it's like 80% of people under the age of 40 expect a response on social media in under an hour. So if you can't fulfill that need, then after that hour, people are starting to get frustrated. Perhaps they'll message you again. And then you get the whole issue where people are emailing you and tweeting you and Facebook messaging you, and you have too many agents kind of spread thinly across. So that's where we bring in kind of making sure that everyone's using the same tool and looking all in together. I think coming up to Christmas, people are going to be a lot more frustrated with retailers if there's lost parcels and people and things aren't arriving on time. So a lot of the time, a response can just be something along the lines of, we're really sorry, we're really busy, we're on it, like we will get back to you. Just that kind of response. It doesn't answer their question, but it lets them know that they're listening, and it lets them know that you're aware of the problem. I know when we're looking at kind of the energy crisis, there have been so many inbound messages by people saying, my company's just gone bust, what do I do? A lot of things like that are just, their response has been a week. It's just said, we will get back to you within a week. But even just for people to know that it's okay, we will hear something in a week, it will calm down, that's okay. Honestly, it's honesty. Like, it's just being honest with your audience, making sure that they understand that you're there, you're listening, and you're doing your best. You're not just ignoring. The worst thing you can do is not respond. I think that's like the most frustrating thing. I actually quite recently had an issue with a retailer that it took 2 weeks for me to just know that they were getting my messages, and that was the most frustrating thing. If they'd just been like, we're really sorry, we're here but we're busy, that would have been fine.
But even if you can't fix someone's problem, at least let them know you're there while you're working it. That seems only polite. We have to wrap up very, very soon, but before we say goodbye, I wondered if I could really quickly just check in with each of you and just check of the things we've looked at this morning. What's the key takeaway that you're taking back to your clients, to your colleagues, to say for next year, this is the thing we need to be paying attention to? It could be a theme that Dominique's offered us. It could be something completely different. Of all the different themes, ideas, trends, issues around social, what are you going into 2022 thinking about? Tracy?
I'm just looking through my notes because there were a few things. I guess the thing that struck me from Dominique's presentation that I'm already thinking of is this holistic view of paid and organic, and how we can, really look at it as non-siloed, even if it's different, teams and budgets responsible for it. And to take it one step further, a lot of our social media is signposting web as well. And so I think those three need to be looked at together, because if the social's great but the web experience is not, then you're losing the customer anyway. So I would say that holistic view across everything is very important.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. Rhianna, what's the thing you're hitting next year with top of your list?
Absolutely agree with you, Tracy, as well. I think that's so important. The other one is getting marketing out of the marketing department and into other areas of the business, I think is so crucial. There are so many places where I've worked where we should have had a seat in MPD, we should have had a seat in customer service. There's so many more places for marketing to sit. We've got so many insights, we're closest to the customer, and it is breaking out of the marketing office and getting into all the other spaces in the business and sharing what we know.
Love that idea. And then Dominique, very, very quickly, if you can, just a closing thought from you. If we're going to take all these ideas that we've looked at and put one of them top of the list, underline it in red pen, which should be the one to go for?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, I have to agree with Tracy and Rhianna. I think when I'm looking at Hootsuite and kind of what we are doing as an organisation and for kind of Q1 next year, it is exactly that. So we're breaking down the silos between all of our organisations. So whether that's sale, customer care, product marketing, and product development as well, we're making sure that we've got a clear view into everything. Just because our product has changed and developed so much within the last couple of years. So we have got so many different insights and customer insights that may be getting dropped ever so slightly, and we could be using that in our marketing. We could be doing a lot better, a lot more efficiently. So I think that's something that if you can do, I really, really think it is worth a big focus, because when you're breaking down those silos, then you've got the customer care tick, you've got everything else kind of tick boxed. And yeah, bringing that digital and paid together for us, I know has been really, really incredible. So you're ticking the box there as well.
It's not easy, this stuff, is it? As digital marketers, we face so many challenges, and because those challenges keep on changing, we've got some big tasks ahead of us. But thank you so much. I think that the time we've spent together this morning has helped us all sift through a few of the ideas, a few of the challenges. I'm really grateful to Tracy Nat from AXA Investment Managers and to Rhianna Fisher-Wilford from Selesti for joining us to help us digest some of those ideas. But huge thanks, of course, to Dominique Elsey, who always gives us lots to think about. Dominique from Hootsuite. We're going to share Dominique's report. That was so useful, and there's so much in there to digest that we are going to share that. So if you didn't take good enough notes, don't panic. There'll be plenty of time for you to dig through that and explore it a bit more. But thank you, all three of you, so much for joining us.